This right here is the SF Motive. It's a signature yo of Connor Seals, who is basically a legend in their world. Connor is currently ranked 2nd in the nation and 11th in the world. So for any of you that aren't familiar with Connor Seals, he's a pretty big deal. So real quick before I get into this review, I want to thank SF for sending me this yo. It was super generous of them. In addition, before we get into the kind of appearance and the play of the yo like I normally do, I want to provide just a little bit of background on this yo and what went into the design process for this yo, because I think it's pretty interesting. Alright, so I reached out to Connor a little while back asking for a little bit of background on the yo itself. Just like looking for what went into production, what he was looking for with this yo, what he wanted out of it, and how he wanted it to play. And so he kind of sent me a book. So if you guys are interested in reading exactly what he said word for word, I'm gonna put some screenshots, on the screen right here for a second. Boop. And you guys can read that and pause this video if you want to know exactly what he said word for word. However, I personally am going to just summarize what he said just for the sake of time. So when Connor went to design the Motive, he took some inspiration from the SF Bliss and Bliss CS, which he used to use for competition. So the Bliss is ridiculously rim weighted, so much so that it even slips from binds quite a bit, and I can confirm that. I have an SFYo's Bliss CS, and it really is kind of tough to get those binds done. They're pretty slippery. And so the reason it has that issue with binds is because it just has too much rim weight. So Connor really liked the profile and angular shape of the Bliss, but he wanted to add more center weight, which makes the yo better for horizontal and makes it easier to bind. In addition, Connor chose to have the bimetal rims of this yo on the inside rim of the yo rather than on the outside for added durability. Specifically, having the bimetal on the inside of the rim prevents the rim from being knocked out of place if it hits the ground, because it can cause a lot of vibe if you do that. In addition, you'll notice the Motive has a little convex button in the center of the cup. That was actually SF's side yet, and it gives the yo a more even weight distribution and gives it more center weight in general. Now, in regards to prototypes, Connor really liked the first proto and used it at MWR, Scales Open Volume 2, and Worlds. Later, Connor tried making the yo a little bit lighter with a more round body and a wider gap width, which he used at Nationals, but it wasn't really as good as the first prototype. So then they got to work on the third prototype. They added 0.5 gram of weight to each ring from the second proto, and that was released at Worlds, and it was called the Motive Beta. But it still really wasn't as good as the first prototype. So they made some tiny changes to the shape and slightly rounded the edges of the first prototype, and there you have it. That's how the Motive came to be. Really interesting stuff about this yo. I think it's so funny how the first prototype was just essentially the best one out of all of them. The second and third ones just, they didn't stack up to the first prototype. So it really is kind of interesting how yo-yos come to be. Alright, so I'm going to put the specs of this yo on the screen right here, and you can pause the video if you want to check them out. Alright, so let's begin with the analysis of this yo-yo. First, let's look at the specs. For the most part, the dimensions of the Motive are pretty standard. Nothing really stands out to me as being too irregular. And like most SF yo-yos, the Motive features 7068 aluminum on the body of the yo, and then we got these rainbow rims which are made of stainless steel, which really give that yo-yo that premium feel. The shape is really reminiscent of the Bliss, but it's not as curvy. It has more of a straight, steep slope down to the bearing. I do love shapes like these because they're super wide and catchable. Now, the cup of the Motive is really interesting, and I really like it in general. We've got these beautiful iridescent stainless steel rims on the inner lip, which look absolutely amazing. In the center, we have a really cool convex button, as I talked about earlier, which adds that nice amount of center weight, as Connor described. I'm really not sure what to call this centerpiece, but it just reminds me of a rounded cap or a button, so that's what I'll call it. And so overall, the Motive is a really cool yo-yo. It's not crazy, flashy, or obnoxious. It's more sleek, and has just quite a bit of nice attention to detail. Alright, so now we've all been waiting for, how does this yo-yo play? So let's begin. This yo is definitely reminiscent of the Bliss, but they are not the same yo by any means. The Motive feels like a Bliss with a bit more character to it, and here's what I mean by that. Like the Bliss, the Motive has a ton of rim weight. There's no denying it. When this yo is on the string and you're just playing with it, you'll just feel how rim weighted the yo is. It's kind of insane. However, unlike the Bliss, the Motive doesn't have excessive rim weight. It seems that SF and Connor have found this perfect balance between not having way too much rim weight and not having enough rim weight. It's just it's just right. The motive plays very solid on the string, but it also does play quick. It definitely feels like a powerful and solid yo-yo, but it's not like a brick on the string. On the contrary, I found this yo-yo to play a bit on the faster side in general than most yo-yos, and I was impressed with how maneuverable this yo-yo was. Alright, so next, this yo-yo is definitely extreme. It really is like one of the most powerful, stable, and extreme yo-yos I've ever played with. So this yo-yo, it's gonna be able to handle all of your tricks. There's no question about that. It spins for an extremely long time, and I found that even after some of like my longer combos, I had like a surprisingly large amount of power still left in the yo-yo, which was super interesting. Adding on to what I said earlier about how maneuverable this yo is, any like redirects and fast changes of direction tricks are super nice and easy. This yo plays really nice and nimble on the string, making like the more fast, complex tricks a lot easier. Alright, so one of my favorite parts of this yo is actually the finish of it. The motive has like a really smooth finish and on the silver body, which 1, reduces friction between the string and the yo, aiding to longer spinning, and 2, makes this yo especially good for grinds. The shape is super wide and angular, so grinds are really easy and they last a long time. And now I know grinds aren't too popular in this day and age, but if you're looking for a yo that grinds well, the motive is an excellent candidate. I really love this like wide, flared out shape of the motive. These types of shapes make yo-yoing in general just a lot easier. You'll be able to hit your tricks much more consistently, and you'll be able to complete like harder lacerations and really just perform more tricks with this flared out shape. Now, I'm no horizontal expert by any means, but Connor does a ton of horizontal tricks in his freestyles, and I can conclude that this yo is especially good for those types of hard horizontal tricks. The shape just makes like catching those harder horizontal hops a lot easier, and since this yo is just so powerful, you can perform the more extreme horizontal combos with ease. So in conclusion, this is just a really good yo-yo. I was really impressed with what Connor and SF have like put together with this. This is really just like the perfect yo-yo for Connor Seals, and I think it's also going to be the perfect yo-yo for a lot of you guys. If you're just looking for a really competition-oriented, stable, solid yo-yo that is just going to feel amazing on the string, this is a really good choice for you. Once again, thank you to SF for making this video possible and for sending this yo-yo on over. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the SF Motive. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and also if you guys are new here and haven't seen my videos before, hit that subscribe button. I post videos just about every single week. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.